As we turn to this first month of readings, we'll be exploring letters 1 through 10 in the Screwtape Letters. I want to encourage you as you read and reflect and prepare for discussion to be alert to the context in which Lewis is writing these letters and to think about analogous circumstances that mark our own lives decades and even an ocean away. Lewis writes these letters in 1941. The Second Great War is ongoing. In fact, the battle for Britain has just occurred. He writes in these first 10 letters repeatedly about war. As you read letters 5 and 6 in particular, you'll see that Screwtape offers warning and caution to young Wormwood, suggesting that war can often be used by the enemy, that is God, to help draw people unto himself. Screwtape doesn't give up, of course. He offers direction for how war can be nonetheless advantageous to the demonic assaults of these diabolical tempters. We do well to pay attention to how Lewis sees suffering, overwhelming anxiety, political schism, and rancorous debates on the world stage, how these and so many other trying or challenging circumstances can easily set us up for spiritual downfall. He does point to matters that are more subtle, the way in which letter 7 describes the remarkable power of abstract commitments, whether it's patriotism or pacifism, these great ideologies or principles to which we can become sometimes unduly or disorderly in our commitments. I want to invite you not only to be alert to the way in which Lewis is writing about the spiritual assaults that would be felt so profoundly by Europeans, Britons especially, in the midst of bombing campaigns and an ongoing, seemingly overwhelming war. We, of course, have the benefit of hindsight, knowing how it ended, but we need to sympathetically appreciate how his listeners and then his readers, they would encounter this as something that was truly ongoing, legitimately scary, and could have real spiritual consequence, leading them to despair, to anxiety, to fear of man instead of fear of God. I want to invite you, too, to consider analogies in our own world. As you read and consider these temptations, these diabolical devices as they would have landed in 1941 and 42, as they would have impacted Britons in the midst of such an overwhelming and brutal war, what might be circumstances today, perhaps more subtle, nonetheless more trying, that mark our spiritual journey? What are the trials and difficulties? What are the global concerns and local frustrations that oftentimes are the occasion for our being tempted in sometimes obvious ways and in many circumstances, subtle and indirect manners? As we gather to discuss, I want to invite you to be attentive and alert, not just to the text, but the way in which it lands in its original context. Not only that we might study it as a historical artifact of a century ago, but that you might be prompted to imagine ways that it is relevant for you, for us today, here where you meet and in communities of Christians around the world. I look forward to the conversations we'll have together.